Ecco, funziona? Mi senti? 1, 2, 1, 2, sì, bene, bene, bene. L'altro? Proviamo anche il primo, che almeno ce li avete tutti e due. 1, 2, 1, 2, Perfetto.
Perfetto?
Perfetto.
Grazie.
Perfetto. Si parla portoghese, no?
Sì.
Sì. Portoghese, portoghese.
Brasil? No, sono francese. You take this one?
Yeah, so Francesco is just checking if the name tag of the second speaker is taken or not. And he had no communication with her. And,
Okay, sure.
in any case, but then you don't have to rush at all.
Amazing. Great. That's fantastic news.
You think it's okay to start?
From the point of view of technical stuff,
Let's
it's
start.
okay.
Okay.
So if you want,
Yeah, okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Sabine Feist, and I'm so happy to chair this morning's panel. And so far, it looks like we have just one speaker. We're mystified by the second speaker who hasn't been seen or heard from. And so that means, oh, she's, okay. All right, we have two speakers. That's very good news. So perhaps with no further ado, I will introduce Louise Romain. Her background is in anthropology. She graduated in 2019 after studying at 5 different universities. And since then, she has been working as a campaigner for climate justice and indigenous rights. She loves to reflect on systemic norms, interpersonal relationships, power dynamics, and privileges. She's passionately involved in the defense of human and more than human communities and dedicated to protect diversity, all forms of life on Earth. Louise entered the world of sonic production a year ago and is currently exploring the ideas of sound activism and multi-species storytelling by creating immersive sound journeys with her show Circle of Voices, which you can find on Spotify and SoundCloud. Please welcome Louise Romain.
Thank you. Bonjour à tous, guten Morgen, buongiorno a tutti. Good morning, everyone. I find it important to greet in different languages in the acknowledgement of the many cultures that are in the room. And I really want to bring in the concept of language justice that I learned from a friend. So please, I hope you will feel courageous enough to intervene if there is a vocabulary that you don't understand, or if I speak too fast, use the hand signals, because I get so passionate about these things. And yeah, I think it's important to understand that English isn't necessarily the first language for maybe most of us in the room. I want to just bring a little outline of what I'm going to do. You should all have received a little piece of paper. Hopefully, if we have time, that will be for like a little interactive exercise at the end. And I'm going to be sharing my story. There's going to be some recordings I'm going to play from my show and also a piece of spoken word. Yes, so I want to start by situating my identity, definitely taking this concept from the living legend that Donna Haraway is, by the way. And I was born in France, and I think probably the way that I identify the most is as an earthling, so like a citizen or a being of the earth. And that's both, I think, spiritually, but also because I have grown roots in different countries and I really feel held in different parts of the world. So I was mentioned, I studied anthropology. I started doing my undergrad at the Freie Universität in Berlin, and also studied a few languages like Spanish, Chinese, and Indonesian, all in German. So if you weren't sure that I'm a complete language nerd by now, it's totally official. And the project I started working on in my undergrad is on this website. And I'm not going to go so much into details because it's still available online, but basically it was the idea to explore cultural revitalization among First Nations in Quebec, working really closely with a group of young women. And something I really wanted to look at is like, how do they connect with their roots and culture with ongoing colonialism and oppression? And so there's different threads that I explore in this project, something around like resisting the stereotypes and harmful representations of Indigenous people that are still very alive nowadays, even in a country like Canada. And also really looking at like how to disseminate and digitize Indigenous knowledge. And so I learned coding and programming, and I coded this website with incredible help as well. And the idea is in this circle, which is based on the medicine wheel. Some of you might be familiar with that. And so these are all like interactive components. And as you can see, there is like, so for example, sharing circles, participatory photography, but also sound recordings. So that was like my first time actually going into places and like playing with like a really crappy little microphone. And then one of the exploration with this was kind of to go beyond the textual production of academia and actually see how can I use technologies to both like connect with the participants and also share some of the results of the research. And this is very much what I carried forth with my master degree at Aalborg Universitet in Copenhagen in this like really unique master program called Techno-Anthropology. And so I explored some more, and you can find like the thesis and stuff like this in here, but like things around mediation, translation of the content, and also looking at power dynamics around collaborating as a white European women with Indigenous people and all of these kind of like ethical questions that it brought. Yeah, and I ended my, as mentioned, I ended my academic chapter in 2019, and basically the pandemic kind of brought a lot of disruption, like for so many of us, and I ended up moving to England, to a small town called Stroud in the southwest, and started getting involved in the climate movement, working for an organization called Stop Ecocide. I'm just going to pull up the website as well, because why not? We're all about promotion. Which is a really amazing campaign. I invite you to check it out. It's since I started getting involved in 2017, it really grew into this massive global movement. And it's definitely one of the campaigns that gives me a lot of hope and faith when we think about the climate crisis and ecological collapse. But what this brought me to is going to COP26 in Glasgow, which seeded an idea to go visit the front lines and actually, so that's like what's written in my abstract, like connect with lands, waterways and peoples impacted by the fossil fuels, logging and mining industries, and really like go and learn from places and cultures who have already experienced the end of the world, whether it's genocide, slavery or extermination. And I think we are coming to a point in our European, Western, global North cultures of like existential crisis, and we have never maybe faced that. So there was like, what stories of resistance and resilience can I harvest from these lands? And sure enough, I set off last summer solstice in 2022. And so this piece of spoken word I want to read now was actually written in 2016, the first time I traveled to Canada, but I feel that it is very relevant still for this journey. It's called Web of Chance. Disclaimer, I haven't actually never read poetry at an academic conference before, so this is quite exciting. I just felt like the idea to like bring a bit of art and beauty in a sometimes quite stiff academic setting was quite exciting to me. So yeah, here we go. I heard a call, and so I showed up. Leaving home, crossing the ocean, hungry for learnings, the heart full of passion, coming on this land with a big vision, not quite ready to meet that bitter illusion. How ignorant was I? While starting this journey, how innocent am I? Well, I had no idea. I heard a call and so I listened. To the ways the stories were told, to the tragedies where too much was sold. Now I honor how we are all so bold, and I wonder how we can together grow old. I heard a call and so I stepped into this fascinating community where it isn't only about love, peace and harmony, where we share what hurts and what feels wrong, enabling us to truly bond. Questioning my history, feeling unsettled in this fragmented reality, pushing me to reframe my identity. Quite hard with the mic. Simply being challenged by life's fertility. I am thankful for the gifts, the former, the present, and the future ones. I am thankful for the relationships, the former, the present, and the future ones. So let's rise with hope and mutual understanding. Let's go face the world, ready for healing, transforming it into a better place to live in for all coming generations and forms of being. So this is the trip I did. It was in two parts. The Canadian chapter went from east to west, landing in Montreal and going all the way across. And again, because of time constrictions, I'm not going to go much into details, but I just want you to notice the indigenous names on the map and the marking of indigenous territories that I visited. And I think it's like both a decolonial approach, but also a way to acknowledge that in the naming, in the ancient naming of places, there is so much meaning held in connection to land. So yeah, you're welcome to explore that. But I do want to share a sound journey that I produced for an organization based in British Columbia called Raven Trust. And I actually came full circle. So after my time in Brazil, I came back to Montreal for the Biodiversity COP15, which some of you might not be aware of, but basically there was like a major agreement signed there, which is the same thing as the Paris Agreement, but for nature. It's called the Global Biodiversity Framework, the GBF. And I recorded a conference as well as doing recording of the Athabasca River in Edmonton. And so this is a little insight into this. Let me just check. The person you're going to hear speaking is called Daniel Tessele. He's from the Dene Nation, lawyer and advocate, and works for Keepers of the Water, who was giving this press conference.
Brought me to cross that same ocean.
On our self-determination issues, and I also work for Keepers of the Water as their Northwest Territories outreach manager. Canada is absolutely required to obtain the free, prior, and informed consent of all impacted Indigenous nations before enacting Fisheries Act regulations that would legalize the release of toxic tailings into the largest watershed in Canada and the most intact large-scale ecosystem on the continent. And this ecosystem is the broader Mackenzie River Basin. This is a watershed that contains the longest river in Canada and covers 1/5 of the landmass in Canada. It's home to massive amounts of biodiversity and pristine areas of boreal forest. It is the Arctic Amazon. And its tributaries, the headwaters of this watershed, includes the Athabasca River, where this proposed dumping of treated tailings would occur. the broader Mackenzie River Basin is one of the major flyways for migratory waterfowl, and that area of the Peace-Athabasca Delta is one of the key stopping points that hundreds of thousands of migratory waterfowl use each year on their migrations. It's home to key species like whooping crane, Woodbluff Buffalo National Park is home to bison species and is one of the last places where on the continent where wolves and bison have their natural historic predator-prey relationship still intact. Any contaminants?
Thanks for listening. I guess in my work, I really want to bring together stories from the front line and voices from nature. And I feel here it was really exciting to find the sound library of the Yellowstone National Park, which has the same endemic species as the area that Daniel is talking about, and have almost like a conversation between these species and his own, the telling of the story. And yeah, I guess it's like part of the questions that I have, and some of the answers have really come up in the last few days, is like, how can we represent the non-human, or I prefer more than human world, in ways that are somewhat intelligible to us, but also like leave some of the magic and some of the beauty of these nature voices. Yeah, and then maybe just a short story. It was really interesting doing that and having the topic of the Athabasca River, because when I did go in Edmonton, that was one of my intention, was to record the river, and I rented a car and found this spot where I thought I could go quite close to the water, and I went with a really sweet man I had met in Edmonton, and literally the spot we found towards the end when we were leaving, we saw like iridescent color on top of the water. And I was like, oh, what is this? And he said, well, I recognize that. It's definitely like the same thing as my uncle had at the gas station. This is like an oil spill. And so it just brought it so real when I was doing this trip of like, and then we actually like walked up the bank and saw a little pipeline poking through, which is just so normal in territories where, extractive industries are well and alive. And so, yeah, it just really brought it home to be able to do this feature for a really amazing organization called Raven Trust, which you can find all information on the Spotify show, and there's lots of links and stuff like that. So now, traveling south. So this is my website, by the way. It's called tuneintotheworld.com. Welcome to explore. And this is the aquarelle version. I'm hoping to turn it into a really beautiful map as the other one. But this is like the journey I did through Brazil. And it was really challenging because, I guess traveling as a solo female traveler, there is always challenges there. But also, I had never been to South America. I didn't speak any Portuguese, fluent Spanish though, so it helped a bit. And I literally arrived 2 days before the national elections, Lula Bolsonaro, which was just probably one of the most epic times to be in Brazil in my lifetime. And so I went around like with my mic trying to record people, and also not really knowing even where I would go in the country. I had like a landing point in Rio, but the rest of the trajectory was like completely open. So, but what I ended up doing when I came back to the UK, I had an invitation to create a sound journey for a friend's event called Sing for Earth Day. And so I did that, and I created a script about my own journey through it. And I'm really excited because this was actually selected by Radio Frenia to be broadcasted by the Centre of Contemporary Arts in Glasgow on the 1st of September. So it was like super cool to hear my work on the radio, and yeah, felt a bit surreal. So again, I'm not going to share much. I'm just going to share the very beginning of it.
We are continuing priority boarding for Flight 349. Customers in Zone 1 are invited to board at Gate 55.
Last autumn, I traveled to Brazil at the time of the national elections. I went with the intention to record sounds and stories of resistance and resilience in times of collapse and crisis. I created this sound journey to bring you on the road with me. I am Louise Romain, anthropologist and campaigner for climate justice and indigenous rights. Take a deep breath and enjoy the ride. In the heart of Rio de Janeiro stands one of the world's largest urban forests, Floresta da Tijuca, the Tijuca forest.
This is a little teaser to like lure you into listening to more. And yeah, and before my time runs out and before we do this little intriguing pieces of white paper thing, I just wanted to share with you some of the future trajectory I have in mind with my work. So, because I also acknowledge that there is a lot of wisdom and experience in the room, and I'm like literally a baby in the sound world. So I went to New York to cover the New York Climate Week a few weeks back. And one of the things that really landed with me is these things around echo chambers. And I've had conversations with some of you in the room, and thank you so much for some of your insights already. It's been super helpful. But basically realizing that in the philanthropic sector, only 2% goes to fund climate-related things. And so there is a massive need to like educate philanthropists and people with financial resources, which at the moment are mostly channeling their money towards tech and innovation. And in those rooms, there is mostly white guys listening to that. Whereas in the rooms where there is frontline voices being amplified and all of these stories of people who are the most impacted and that have contributed the least to the climate crisis, there will mostly be women, younger people, and black people or people of color and indigenous folks. So I'm really intrigued, like, okay, how can we bridge those spaces, those conversations? And one of the things I would really like to do with my work, and in general, like both the campaigning, but especially the sound production, is actually gear my production for philanthropists and feature both those stories, those voices, but also bring nature into their imagination and into their emotional bodies. And maybe like it's like I believe it's one of the ways that we can spiritually have this interconnectedness and this vision that is so key to indigenous cultures and cosmologies around the world that we are severed from, or that we have forgotten maybe in our cultures. So that's like an ongoing quest, and if you have any thoughts on that, I really, really welcome them. And then a few other triggers I wanted to share with you, or challenging parts of my work, has been how to reflect on the extractivism of those stories and those knowledge, in the way that nowadays there is more and more indigenous or native-led media collectives. And so as a white European girl, I'm just wondering, like, what is the role of allyship in media production, and where do I position myself, and what's my role and responsibility in these conversations? And I know some of them are a lot more alive in Turtle Island, which is so-called North America, than in Europe, for example. And then specifically one of the questions I have for myself is like, I want to, because I don't produce music, that's like maybe a lacking part in my content, but I have developed these relationships with really talented indigenous DJs from Canada and Brazil, and who have now become friends. And I'm curious, like, how to think about maybe redistribution, wealth redistribution, if my content does make some money at some point, like which kind of ethical contract I could build with them so that they are valued in their work, and where there isn't this reproduction of extractivism, which is shifting as well in academia, but definitely traditionally very, very alive. Yes. All right, little game, if we have time. So I would really like for you to write on this piece of paper a living being that you see is needs more representation in the sonic world, and why. And the way I'm going to be collecting these, and the way to share it at the end, it's going to be if you can sound it, if you can mimic it. And before you do that, I would really like to, this is an invitation, feel welcome to do it or not. But yeah, the idea is to just maybe close your eyes and focus on your inner world, on your breathing, and on connect back to your body and see if there is any living being that that you feel close to and that deserves more representation in the sonic world. And I'm gonna do like 1 minute or something. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Last collecting thoughts moments. Cool. Is there any shares from the crowd and from that exercise or from any other questions? Yeah, amazing. Thank you. But also, if you want to voice whatever, you're super welcome to do that. You will have to come and take the mic, though. Yay, amazing. Great. Thank you. Part of me wants to ask what it was, but I think I'm not going to do that. Leave it to the mystery. Thank you. Questions? Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's really inspiring. And yeah, I found it really difficult to settle on one living being, particularly inspired by some of the stuff that Sabine was saying yesterday and Karen Ducker's talk, thinking about species that communicate outside or, our limited range of hearing. And bats, and I knew they echolocated, but I had no idea that they had really complex communication cores as well, and the whole world of plants and sound, and that we're just starting to scratch the surface of this stuff, these hidden worlds, So I'll finish with a bat sound.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your attention.
We have time for a couple of comments or questions.
Yeah, no, I'll translate it into English. I just want to say, I just think it's really inspiring. I spoke to you earlier in the conference, and you're clearly focused, driven, and I think that's very exciting. And I think the very fact that you're questioning your place in this is the start, you know. I think that's so important because it's so easy to charge in, but the fact that you're considering how you're situated, what your privileges are, and how that you work ethically is such an important start. So yeah, all the best. Well done.
Anybody else?
Appreciate the work that you do, and I also have a question. Did you find some of the indigenous groups or people live in the rural places? Do they want to be? Do you think they have the urge that they want it to be amplified in a way, or do they want to rather just stay away from the city or just leave them alone?
Really good question. Yeah. There's a big contrast between my experiences of traveling through Canada versus Brazil. So especially on the west coast of Canada, which was colonized much later, like if you say you're an anthropologist, you just get bad rep from the start. It's like really, really tricky terrain. And then if you say you want to record their stories, whoa, who are you? What are you doing on our lands? Have you been invited here? That's like often one of the very first questions. So unless you're actually invited, you're not necessarily welcomed. And this is like not everywhere, right? But definitely in some communities, it's super strong. And so what was really interesting is as a conversation to that. So the first and only time I spoke on the radio was in this like really small indigenous radio on Nujak territory, which is in British Columbia, as you can see. And actually, I wasn't the one asking people, I was being asked. So they were asking me my understanding of indigeneity and sovereignty as an anthropologist. And there is this thing of like recognizing their self-determination and how equipped they are and how advanced they are. And so it's like almost like reversing the power dynamics there. But for example, in Brazil, in the small indigenous Pataxó community I went to in Baravelha, they were so keen to share. And so I think there is also maybe this thing about how in the English-speaking world, even though for like indigenous nations in Canada have lost or like are revitalizing their language, but like the supremacy of English has made it a lot more easy to disseminate their stories. But for example, for maybe Portuguese, it's a lot more like isolated maybe as a language, even though there's many Portuguese speakers. So, and also because of their stories, they talked about a genocide that happens in the Pataxó community. So, and I wasn't even going there in my question, but it was just this like stream of information, like really heavy emotional stuff. And that was really interesting to navigate because I'm fluent in English, as you can hear, but I really wasn't in Portuguese. So then there was this thing of like standing there with my mic, interviewing this indigenous leader, and really like I could feel that they were like saying like really hard stuff, and I was understanding maybe 20-30% of it. So I think it's like depending on how far the discourse has come. So for example, in Canada, there is heavy discourses on decolonization, on indigenizing the media and equipping people, especially younger folks, with like media tools and practices, whether in Brazil it's a lot different stage at the moment. But that's a really good question. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Louise. And I'm delighted to welcome our next speaker, Ilaria Cecchinato. And if you'd like to come to the front. Do you have media? Do you need to plug it? Okay. Yeah, maybe Emiliano, would you be so kind to assist her? Okay, everybody, we are ready to move forward. All the technology problems are solved. So that's very good news. So please welcome Ilaria.
The bell is ringing, so now good morning. Thank you to be here to listen to my presentation. I'm sorry if my English sometimes is not so good, but I try to introduce my presentation and myself because it's necessary, I think, to introduce the context about my research that I just started. And I'm specializing in cultural and theatrical journalism, and with the editorial staff Altre Velocità, based in Bologna, I have initiated, I begin, a project that try to analyze the contemporary audio fiction and the interaction between theater and audio today. But at the same time, I have recently started my own research that is an independent research, and I hope that one day could be something real. And this project is focused on exploring the artistic and creative potential of podcast medium, and I use narratology and semiotics, aesthetics, and some studies applied to audio storytelling. And the goal is to enrich this field of research, and at the same time I would like to delineate what is the specifics of podcast language. And so my focus is on audio fiction genre, because I think that is unconditioned from reality, so is potential. It's easier to experiment the creative process. So from this context, my presentation beyond the visible is a preliminary and theoretical interpretation, and the intention is to outline how sound and orality it could be treated as a narrative sign, and the intention is to demonstrate the specificity of listening experience, and as an alternative way to experience the word. And so we change our ethic, our behavior to experience the word through stories. So the premise is probably obvious for who study sound, but for narrative fields is not so obvious. That we have to start from this acknowledging that the sense of the sight is the first through which we experience the word, so it's the predominant sense. At the same time, however, there has been an increase into a production and consumption of audio stories in recent years, and To try to delineate the different kind of experience and different kind of posture that the two senses give us, we could say that the side is the dominant sense, and it concerns forms, appearance, and phenomena. And the posture, the experience, is from subject seeing to object that is being seen. And hearing and listening is, in other hand, is always active because there are no eyelids for ears, and even if there were, we would still be constantly penetrated by sound as a vibration in some way. And we are ourselves, we are vibration too. So this interaction and this perception somehow give us hints of someone's present and that something is happening. So the posture is a bit different because we are into a context, so it's not from subject to object, but it's from subject to subject. Is always the experience goes from subject listening to subject making sound, and they partly blend.
To accompany the 4th episode of Forest 404, with sound design by Graham Wilde, produced by Becky Ripley.
As we constantly expose to sound, we always into an environment, so we always expose, and anthropological and some studies have shown how this affects individual, and so listening to nature is different from listening to a traffic dispute, and so many studies as this one, that is the Forest 404. It's a series by BBC4, and it's a science fiction, but at the same time it's a really big research that try to demonstrate how nature is out just a few minutes to listen to the sound of nature make feel well people, and so this I wanted to take this as a kind of example for just for say that we are always that sorry sorry, but that sound in some way affect human body, head, and emotion. So even though it's not the dominant sense, it's always active, and so in some way we are always experienced by sound. And it concerns something invisible and something that is not immediately manifest. So after that, we are into three characteristics of sound. That sound, resound, sound is a present and a happening, and this means that in some way listening suggests a different way of understanding. But why? Understanding in Western culture has always been linked to a logical thinking. A mindset that rooted in ancient Platonic idea of immutable ideas, but is a forma mentis that now we use to experience the word, because we translate the word into intelligible meanings. Jean-Luc Nancy, this French philosopher, reveals that perhaps we choose sight as the first sense because it deals with form and a logically graspable object, while hearing grasps and tells the ephemeral and the transitory of the reality. And this invites us to another modus operandi, another understanding, and this is not the fault of the site, but how we use it. And even the consumption of audio stories can fall into this habit, but limiting ourselves to listening only to the words for their meaning, or the narration for its representative and descriptive character. But audio stories are composed by a lot of sign, not just words, and words is more complex if we are talking in the dark, as Marshall McLuhan suggests us. If we stand talking in the dark, words suddenly take on new meanings. So we can catch a different meaning. So here, sorry, but my presentation is not. So let's try to understand the characteristic of sound as a linguistic sign, to try to comprehend which kind of posture and ethics are required of the listening subject. And to do this, I take 3 characteristics of sound and see how they can be used in audio. These are evocation, immersion, and intimacy. But before, I wanted to...
Thomas knew. He knew that you were messing with things that you could never hope to understand.
And you think you can understand them? You think you're the one who's going to solve the ancient secrets of this world, of the worlds beyond?
I'm going to solve something. So you just better hope it isn't whatever you've kept buried for 4 decades.
Celeste! Yes, child?
Do you hear that?
Oh, dear.
What? What is it?
The spirits. We've lingered too long.
Okay, then let's get a move on.
Jeremy?
Hello, who's there?
They won't answer you.
Hey, all we can see are your flashlights.
Those aren't flashlights.
Oh, come on, who's there? Will you show your faces?
Don't be hostile to the spirits, dear. You won't like what happens.
Celeste, they're not spirits, okay? It's a person, so someone is out there who's messing with us. Who are you, and what do you want? Oh my God, what is it? What are you saying?
Everyone stay perfectly still. Don't look into the lights. Katie? Close your eyes, child.
What the?
Wait!
Anne?
Don't look into the lights.
Anne?
And whatever you do, don't listen to the voice.
Anne? Anne?
God damn it!
Anne?
Oh, shit.
Anne, are you okay?
No, I am not okay. Those things got away again.
What are you talking about?
Oh, they've taken everything. This fucking place has taken everything.
This little extract is from Bridgewater, That is an American podcast series. And here in this room, probably you cannot totally dive into these stories because it's recorded with 3D audio, so it's necessary to listening with the headphones. And yes, I really loved this this series, and but I take it as an example because the narration in this case unfolds through actions. Came out from the dark, and if the characters don't sound, they don't really exist. So only some things are said, and leaving the rest to the sounds, to the action, and to the construction of the environment, and is useful to what we are analyzing now, because the first characteristics that sound has is the evocative potential. Sound is something that evocate and is not manifest. So in some way due to this invisible nature, so who is listening is always on attention of something that could happen. So when you catch this, always and immediately something vanishes. So this process stimulates the imagination and encourages the visualization of mental images. And in audio storytelling, these offer an enormous creative potential precisely because it's in the dark. We are always in the dark, and it's an abyss that can evoke something that it could be unknown in some and unreal. So this ephemeral aspect of audio in storytelling can recreate fantasy and oniric words, and sometimes is so very similar that you can believe totally in this. And one of the most famous radio drama was the Orson Welles. So the worst word, and their all American believed that there were alien in the world, and this was so incredible, and there weren't all our technology that recreate an environment totally immersive. Totally immersive because the immersion is the second characteristics of audio, of sound, and this is given by its omnipresence, because as we said, every context is an environment, and sound can be a present. So in narration, this is translated in recreate a virtual world, as what happened in Bridgewater. We are totally independent from reality, and we are diving into a new situation, and there we feel in part of a context, and this is one of the different way we start to change our posture, because finally we stay into a situation, and we are resounded with the situation. and this kind of immersivity brings us to the third aspect, that is the potential of intimacy, because sound is yes, about spaces, but it's also about thoughts and about association, about memories, feelings, experiences, imaginary. This because it's ephemeral, it's invisible, and one of the most important things for audio narration is what Nana Haude Christensen said about voice of people. Nana is a sound artist and an anthropology. And she said that there is so much in the voice of people, it is connected to what is going on in that person, and so intonation is important for who try to create an audio narration, because in audio stories, intonation and vocal rhythm reveal aspects that it's not possible to express in words, and it's a sense not intelligible, but just emotional, and so it's far away from irrational meanings. And in audio narratives, intimacy aspect of sound is explored in different way, and sometimes even in a really funny way, like Talia Augustidis in this really interesting podcast series called Unreality, and she tried to go into the dream and the thought of her drunken boyfriend, that he in his sleep talking, assessing so into an intimate moment. Here I take just an extra to give you an idea and introduce. It's like a teaser, but yes, I wanted to listen to this.
All I have to do is lie in bed, and I'm part scientist, part anthropologist, and part nosy girlfriend. I have access to dreams, to his unconscious. So I've recorded him.
It's the territory fruit.
For 3.5 years. I have examined him, just trying to explore.
Tell me where you are.
Somewhere around there.
Where is that?
Where's what?
Where are you?
I'm here, mate.
So it's really, really, really little, but you can find it on Spotify, and so I suggest you to listen to this. So
all I have to do is lie in bed, and I'm part.
What emerges from what we said is that the combination between action, word, and sounds or soundscape evokes and is a way to not limiting ourselves to the description and try to catch the possibility and what emerges, what evokes, and another a new imaginary. And this combination even immerses, making the listener perceive within a context where they don't just listen to something, but listen within something. And this combination access intimacy and gives it a voice, capturing its ephemeral essence and translating it into a vibration. So it's a new or a different way to connect to other people. So audio stories are something that can bring us to a different ethic, because it's a different way to understand and feel ourselves in context and the others. Listen is be a stretch toward a possible and therefore not immediately accessible meaning. So we are always tense to try to catch this meaning, being tense verse. So stories in audio, I think that it could be intended as a representation, but with blurred boundaries, because as sound, they are not tensed to a signifying sense, but to a possible and fluid meaning. So, listen to audio story could be an intimate act to connecting with oneself and others, and it's a different posture because one feels part of the context and not just a self. And we have always to tune with the time of the context where we live, and so. I know, yeah. But yes, I'm at the end of my presentation, so probably is down.
Okay.
But it's not a problem because
electricity. It's very strange. Yes, the laptop broke down.
Okay. Yes, but
very few minutes.
Yes, it's finished. I finished. Sorry. Yes, I would say that in some way it's through stories and through the experience of audio and audio fiction, you can dive into a new form of ethics and stay into a context as part of this. And McLuish said that this tension to possibilities of sense is like poem. So he says that hearing accept this fizziness and beliefs hallows the benefit of the doubt. And so it's a new and a different kind of posture in the world to try to go beyond the visible and so beyond the form and be part of the fluidity and recognize ourselves as a transitive person. Really sorry for my English. It was a bit difficult.
Thank you very much, and I think we can take one or two questions. I think I have one question right away. So, given the topic of this conference, sound sustainability, and also the connection to environmental concerns. Do you see potential in this approach, or do we have projects that would go into that direction? Our climate crisis, and there are so many endangered sounds, and what's the potential of sound in the field of audio fiction? Maybe you could address that.
Yes, it's a really big question, because audio fiction, it's talk always about something that someone could say that it's not real, it's not concrete, but I think that through fiction and through what is art and creativity, we can to focus on the problem and the climate. And for example, I listened some month ago to this podcast, Italian podcast that is called The Source, and it's a serious podcast, and there are these speaker in radio, and they are in emergency because the water is finished, totally finished, and is extremely very similar. And when you listen to this, you recognize that something is happening, and you can you can be in that time, and so audio fiction has this potential. You feel into a real situation, and if some themes became the topic of the series, can in some way help the sound stability and every problems in this kind of, and we change the posture, I think.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yesterday we have a special mention in Italia for the prize Sustainability for Cuore di Rif. So.
Oh, wow! Wow!
Category which a lot of video, only video. So it's in a very interesting situation that we are for audio, and we win in 24 TV documentary. So what is the future is sound.
Thank you.
Andiamo a sentire il concerto. Grazie.
Grazie a voi.
And this is a great conclusion of our first panel today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry for.
Yeah, we had so much time before the panel started, and if you go to another conference, just come early if it's possible, or even.
No,